Hello and welcome to the Trending Now podcast for this Friday, February 2nd, 2024. I'm your host, Louis Butko. Thank you for joining us as we recap the week that was on Trending Now, which you can catch every Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. and 11:30 on CHCH, CHCH.com, and on our Trending Now YouTube page. Coming up on today's show, the Kansas City Chiefs and Taylor Swift are heading to the Super Bowl as the defending champions look to go back-to-back when they take on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, why are people losing their mind when it comes to T-Swift and T-Kelce? Notable Swiftie Jason Gaidola joins us for his thoughts on the game coming up on the show. Also, concerns are mounting about a deal between Manulife and Loblaws that restricts patients from filling prescriptions for specialty drugs at other pharmacies under their insurance plans. That's leading to blowback from public officials and industry experts regarding concerns of competition and personalized care. And Alberta Premier Danielle introduces sweeping changes to that province's laws, imposing new rules and restrictions on youth changing their names or pronouns at school and getting hormone therapy or gender reassignment surgery. Laura Sebben drops by for the latest on that and more coming up. But first, we start with the Super Bowl is set, and Jason Gaidola was on this story on Monday. And first of all, how did you watch the games on Sunday? Were you somebody who was tuned into every second? Were you somebody who had it on the background? What was your viewing style?
Not every second, but I was on it. I feel like the conference title games, and I know they've floated the league has floated the idea, or somebody did through the media, about having the conference games at a neutral site. And that was at a point where like the Bills were possibly, I don't know why it always
the weather for the Bills game, they moved it to and then there was the Damar Hamlin game last year that because of the seeding, that Kansas City Chiefs Bills game needed to be at a neutral site.
Yeah, and then that's exactly what it was. Thank you for bringing that up. And that idea started floating around because the conference title games are like little mini Super Bowls. And going back to even as much as probably in almost the last 20 years, like when it came to I just noticed the broadcasts on television, they just looked a lot more pristine and amped up because they are big games, but whoever earns the right to host it should have the hosting duties. But going back to your original question, I was viewing it as like this is the Final Four. This is what's going to set. This is setting the stage for the Super Bowl, and they were excited. I mean, they were compelling matchups. Yeah, very compelling. One was kind of a grinding defensive battle. Obviously, Kansas City, Baltimore. The other was there was quite a bit of offense, a comeback of 17 points. But yeah, I was glued into my seat because I just thought everybody was thinking, I'm like, is the script going to play out what it was? But maybe this was maybe the script all along was the rematch from a few years ago. I don't know.
This is a rematch from 4 years ago, that being the Chiefs and the 49ers. The Chiefs won that game. People are talking about Patrick Mahomes and kind of the GOAT if he wins this one, if he wins the third in 4 tries. Andy Reid, obviously a great head coach, Travis Kelce, but then you got Shanahan on the other side. I mean, this is a pretty cool matchup for these teams. A lot of people, I think, are like, we're going for Detroit. Love the story about the Lions. Love Dan Campbell. Or Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, what a year. Bet on yourself type thing. They were trying to trade him. Nobody wanted him. It's hard for me to get excited about seeing Patrick Mahomes possibly lift another one, or Brock Purdy. Is Brock Purdy a good story, at least in your books?
He's a very good story. I think it goes back to the question about quarterbacks, and it's the hardest position. I mean, from my viewing, I think it's definitely the hardest position to play in sports. Yeah. It gets microanalyzed to such the highest degree where it is kind of annoying to hear. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, really, there's only like a handful of guys that are in Mahomes ballpark, right? Like true franchise quarterbacks. Everyone else is either your quality starter or you're kind of like a maybe, right? And listen, and I think you can win with a quality starter
because he wasn't great. I mean, Brock Purdy was 178 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I think he had like 43 yards, like those little scrambles that you need. I mean, you need guys who can do that. I think for me, watching the games, I went out Saturday, so it wasn't the first thing I was thinking waking up, Sunday afternoon. And then B, I was still pretty bitter about the fact that my Bills weren't there. And I know, like, I've been a sports fan, and it was I think it was after the Bills had lost, this is going back a couple weeks. Scott Radley, one of the local media guys here in Hamilton, had said, there are people in the world out there who are Ticats fans, Jays fans, Leafs fans, and Bills fans.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at, where I'm like, my teams are good. The teams I cheer for are good, but I've had so little to actually cheer about. Like, I'm jaded about the Leafs right now, right? Like, I'm jaded until they do something in the playoffs. I'm jaded about the Bills until they can finally get past Patrick Mahomes, which seems like it's impossible. Like, it's not hurting my interest in the sport, but it did hurt my interest last week. And I don't know if that was just like I had my feelings hurt the week before, but I did watch some. I wasn't involved as I thought I would be.
You're still grieving a loss. It's fine. It's normal. I know what it's like. Trust me. I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan. When Tim Tebow beat us like 10 years ago, that stuck with me for I didn't get over it until maybe just a few years ago. I'm thinking I still did not get over that loss because there's certain things. It's because something hurts more when it's like a choke job is when you go out there and you didn't do what you normally are accustomed to doing, and especially when it's all laid out there, like just when it should have been a mismatch. The Bills, I felt the Bills should have won that game. Yeah, you're definitely right, but
probably should have.
That's how sports rolls, man, and it's hard to win. It's just hard to win, and I know we see so much media coverage of and the teams that don't win, it's all this excoriating and just saying, oh, this is a disaster. Things need to blow up. I'm thinking, man, it's sport. It's hard to win in sports.
I would agree with that. There's 31 disappointed teams every year.
Yeah. There can only be one winner.
There can only be one. I just want it to be my team eventually. Eventually. So I wanted to talk to you about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah.
Are you over it? Does it bother you? Are you somebody, are you annoyed by it?
No.
'Cause a lot of people are annoyed.
Well, I mean, to be fair, and I'm only just going through I didn't count the time, but they didn't really show her that much on it. I know she yelled at the camera. They caught her yelling, saying, go away, which is fine. But I don't know. The league is all over it, right?
Yeah.
And then but people, I think people are upset. I think the root cause of whoever's upset, it's silly, but it's that I think everyone starts thinking did they fix this for the Chiefs just so they can have Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl? Which in hindsight, I'm celebrities go to the Super Bowl anyways. So chances are she could have been there regardless if the Chiefs are there or not. But it sets the Cinderella storyline, right? She's the biggest musical star right now. I think it's safe to say.
Oh, absolutely. She's coming off $1 billion.
You're selling a love story here.
Who's had the best year? Who's had a better year? Travis Kelce could win 2 Super Bowls within 365 days. Yeah. Taylor Swift sold out hundreds of concerts, making $1 billion. But they're in love. That's the thing. Someone put it it's like,
I guess you could say
being
that.
jealous of somebody in high school. It's the homecoming queen and the star football player. That's who they are.
Yeah,
that's the look. And there's a lot of people who really didn't like high school. And I'm not saying I peaked in high school. Some people watching this may think I did, but there's a lot of that internal resentment where it's man, screw you. The athlete getting the pretty girl.
Really, I don't know. The way that's the jealousy I think my legitimate reason where I could see if I were annoyed by this, the only logical explanation is that it's all the other teams are pissed off because everyone's probably getting sick and tired of seeing the Chiefs win. They think that, did you help push this team to the Super Bowl so you can set up this love story where he may be able to propose to her if they win the Super Bowl? And because there's already a prop bet coming out for it, and it just fuels the interest because that's what they want. They want more scenarios. They want more storylines. You want more variables to make this game as compelling as possible. And also too, there's probably. I'm still the believer where I'm I don't know how much. I don't know. I would question
if he wins.
No, I'd push back if I would say I don't know how serious they really are.
They're celebrities. They're related. I think people have done that where they've gone through. That's a lot of the right wing attack is looking at. Well, look at Taylor Swift's dating history. She's dated this guy and this guy and this guy. It's first of all, that's a great list of former partners for like you're famous. You do whatever you want, man. Whatever makes you happy.
For all we know, this could be just one big clout chase.
Yeah,
we don't know.
I mean, who's chasing the clout here? I always said it was Travis Kelce.
Kelce is, yeah,
because like this was a guy who,
star.
yeah, exactly, because he was on a reality show like 10 years ago trying to find a date.
He was.
You can like there's a MTV show or something. So this guy's always wanted the clout. So you mentioned about betting. So you can speculate all you want in the U.S., but you're not allowed to legally bet on whether or not she'll show up or how many times she'll show on TV. So those types of wagers can be made on offshore sports books, and we're still waiting on word from Canadian authorities of whether those bets will be okay, because BetMGM public relations manager John Ewing says that they'd love to be able to bet on that. But in the U.S., the general rule is that wagering is limited to what happens on the field. And in Las Vegas, they have made some of the strictest rules regarding the kinds of wagers that can be made. So legally in the States, we've seen a lot of sports wagering blow up down there lately. You won't be able to bet on it. But she's got a concert in Tokyo, I believe, that day.
Boy, have fun making that flight.
Yeah, and there was one meme going around that there was... I think it was the West Wing. There was a clip from the West Wing where the president's got to get back from Tokyo in one day. So they're like, this applies perfectly. Like Taylor Swift can do it. I think she'll be there, but I guess we'll have a week to get ready for that. I want to get to this story as well, because you were working on this one.
Yep.
The Manulife Insurance and Loblaws. So
yes, sir.
If you have a drug plan under Manulife Insurance, a Loblaw-owned property like Shoppers Drug Mart is likely the only place you can now go to pick up your prescription. Tell us a little bit about this. This is
apparently so. And I did talk to a few people that, I guess an industry expert and they're usually university professors and on this healthcare policy. And from what I was told, this has already become a trend. One expert actually told me this, and it didn't make the story, but he just says, I'm surprised this is a story now because this has actually been slowly happening. It's what they call preferred pharmacy network arrangements, where it's very popular in the States, very free reign capitalism a move where it's like, yeah, we're gonna broker an exclusive deal so we can send all of our clients to this
specific
pharmacy
Shoppers
on the basis of maybe we'll drop a discount because some of these are 260 specialty medications meant for a lot of chronic conditions, ailments, cancer, Crohn's, you name it, stuff that they're not normally obtained by the general population. So is there an ethical issue here? I mean, I don't know. It's just, there's no regulation, and that's what they were telling me, that there's no regulations, there's no regulatory framework to kind of mitigate this, because what does this say about, there was concerns about personalized care, right? And that's probably, and it's a legitimate point, because the question raises, it's like, well, what happens if, someone's a Manulife, someone has a Manulife package, and you live in a rural community, you live in a First Nation community, you don't have access to a Shoppers. What do you do? Now, maybe there's a mail-in, but like there's something about going to your local pharmacist, and especially going to like an independent pharmacist. That's been part of our cultural fabric, I guess, for so many long. Like that's all I've ever done, and now you're kind of going into like a pill factory, right?
Well, so like. I say this is I don't have a lot of prescriptions. When I do, it's an antibiotic for a tooth infection, or, ear infection or something. But like when I think about it, I think the only pharmacy I've gone to is a Shoppers Drug Mart. So like for a lot of people,
that's fair.
They might not even think. But like these Loblaws, and I think what bothers me is that Loblaws has done nothing to get good publicity in the last year, it seems, right? I mean, like Galen Weston Jr., we haven't seen it. He doesn't show up on those commercials.
Him, I guess.
Everybody is, because he is the owner. Like his family owns Loblaws. Loblaws is a $1 billion company, but it's just like, okay, Loblaws, you keep doing this. Like, do something good. Like, give me a reason to talk about you in a positive way, because I haven't been able to do that in quite some time. I haven't stopped shopping at Loblaws. I wanted to once they did that 30% off to 50%. Like, just little things like that.
Everybody needs a villain.
And
Weston
villain.
plays a great villain. I
Yeah.
understand that. But I think this is kind of what stands out to me is that, I mean, this is kind of where we've been heading, even with other things over the last, decade or so. Like, you're right. You only go to Shoppers for your like that's what people do now.
Yeah.
People are going to Shoppers, they're going to Walmart, they're going to Costco, and it's very seldomly I hear, I'm going to Joe's Pharmacy on the corner there that everyone used to go to. Now we're going to this commercial. It's commercialization where they've just taken over everything, and the little guy is failing to compete. And the only way to challenge that is how do you make a product just as good but cheaper?
And when it comes to prescription drugs, I mean, they've been trying that forever, right?
Real drug dealers.
The Ontario Pharmacists Association says a formal complaint is being filed with the Competition Bureau, but is there anything Ottawa can do? I know that they were talking about it. They're saying this isn't great, but is there anything Ottawa can do to step in?
They just got back to me today, which is it's not that shocking.
That
Federal
it took
government
3 days to get back?
2-3 days. They were telling me that they are aware of that there is intention, but they can't disclose if they've received it. I don't know. And does it have any validity where it's gonna? The Pharmacists Association of Ontario, they're telling me that they're doing it on the ground of bad faith dealing. And I mean, I don't know. It's probably. I mean, if I'm a betting man in Vegas, I'm going to say probably nothing's going to come of it because there's no regulation. There's nothing there to legislatively counter this. So it doesn't look like a no-go. It looks like Shoppers it is, right?
Preferred pharmacy network arrangements. Had never heard that term until today. And,
PPNs.
We're going to hear it quite well this week until you had it in your story. Big plans for the weekend? You said you're doing a little OHL hockey on Sunday?
Yes. Taking my little nephew, my bros. Now, normally I do catch some London Knights games because that's my residential city.
Home base.
Even though I'm from the Hammer, but so I do catch the Knights at Budweiser Gardens in London. But I've switched the gear where I said, let's because my brother lives near the Guelph area.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go watch the Storm Knights. Nice little Sunday afternoon hockey.
I love the Guelph Arena. It's right downtown. While you're there, maybe stop by Brothers. It's a little brewery on the corner. Tell them Louis sent you. Maybe you'll get a beer on the house.
All right. I like that.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. All right. My thanks to Jason Gaidola for joining me. Still had Laura Sebben, the Trending Now producer and co-creator, will be joining us in just a little bit. But I also wanted to get to this story as we stay with trends in Canada when it comes to the health industry. The majority of provinces and territories are asking the federal government to indefinitely hold off a plan to expand eligibility for assisted dying to those with a mental illness. Now, the Liberal government was facing pressure to specify what such a delay could look like, with the extension set to take place in mid-March. But now you have the government saying that they will not be doing that, as a Commons committee reporting the health system was not ready for MAID to include people whose only condition is a mental illness. Federal Health Minister Mark Holland and Justice Minister Arif Virani both say they plan to delay the expansion, and they made that official later in the week. Now, in its final report this week, a parliamentary committee warned that the health system is not ready to allow MAID access for mental illness. It found that critical questions remain unanswered, such as how to tell if patients requesting an assisted death are suicidal or whether it is possible for them to get better. Now, when the updates to MAID were made in March of 2021, it included a 2-year clock, and last year the feds added another year to that timeline. And if the government wants to opt to pause the expansion indefinitely, they've pushed it back to now 2025 at least. So we'll watch that as it goes on. We change gears now, I guess, not really, because it's still a healthcare issue when it comes to the provinces and Canada. But I was telling Nicole this yesterday as we're joined by Laura Sebben, the co-creator and producer of Trending Now. The video that Danielle Smith put out, it started, I was scrolling through and I watched the first 35, 40 seconds being like, oh, what a good message to put out, right? Because she starts with this message that, we love you and we love you in Alberta no matter who you are. And then I stopped watching. I was like, okay, cool. It's a 7-minute video. This is a nice video. And then I started reading the replies. What did you make of Danielle Smith's announcement this week?
I think it's just another example of politicians not being real humans and just hearing stuff on the internet and being like, oh, we got to make a law about this. Because most of what she discussed was, restricting any hormone blockers or hormone boosters. So like, for example, a transgender woman or a transgender man, you would either start taking estrogen or testosterone. And then as well, like surgeries for people 18 and under, she was banning any gender affirming surgeries. Anyone who knows anything about the transgender experience knows that most, if not all, unless, you can find sketchy doctors around, but most will not, they're not performing surgeries on 13-year-old, 14-year-old kids. That's just not a thing. Like, yes, the hormone blocking and the gender affirming hormone care starts earlier, but that's so that if the kid knows before they're 13, 14 that they feel like the other sex, why would you want them to experience all the heights of puberty, like of the wrong sex? This isn't gender, it's sex, which a lot of the people like to say, there's only two genders. Like, no, gender is a social construct. There are two sexes. Yes, that is correct. And sometimes you feel like you're the other one just because of how just because of how like biology works and how a fetus is created in the uterus. Like, you start out as a woman and either stay as a woman or become a man. So it's not unheard of to think that you would feel like the other way.
These announcements that like she made, like the ones you're talking about, being like most doctors will not let you do. Well, we'll
it's
consider
not a thing.
It's not a thing. But that kind of buries the other things that are in these sweeping legislation changes. Like, parents will have to opt students in to every lesson about sex education, sexual orientation, or gender identity. To me, because that transgender reassignment surgery, hormone blockers or boosters affects so little, this is the one that really jumps out to me, because we've talked about on this show, Governor DeSantis's moves in Florida. This is everything of that DeSantis would want to do
100%
in Florida, but it's happening in Alberta.
100%. And it's just, why do you want, I don't know, like, I don't get it. Why don't you want your kids to know about life? Like gay people aren't going away just because you're not teaching it. And like it's frustrating because as a parent, by you pulling your kid out of that kind of discussion or that kind of learning, you're telling your kid that it's bad without explicitly saying that it's bad. And so then you're teaching your kid to other these people. And you're also, I feel like, just robbing your child of like learning about something and getting to like make their own decisions about it and deciding what they like or dislike about, hey, this was a crazy lesson in health class. Like, you know what I mean?
Smith said teachers need to get third-party instruction material on gender identity, sexual orientation, and human sexuality approved by the education ministry before they are used in the classroom. And the law right now requires one notification and parents can opt out. Also, a new policy forbids transgender women from competing in women's sports league, saying Smith said the government will work with leagues to set up co-ed or gender-neutral divisions. It's also unclear whether these changes will be done by law or government policy. She had a press conference yesterday, says these are laws they're going to be working on in the fall. So really, yeah.
It's just sad because, again, you're inviting these people to get discriminated against, basically. Because, let's use the example of a transgender woman competing in basketball. Somebody in the locker room might notice, like if they're not far along in their journey, that they're a transgender person and might whisper something about it to a friend or to a colleague and be like, oh, did you see that person? But having like a law now that says they're not allowed to participate in these sports then opens it up that instead of having a whisper, they're probably going to feel more comfortable, be like, you have to get out of here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's sad. And even just like the stuff about the pronouns and if a kid wants to change their name, like having to...
Yeah, we talked about this, is that like a lot of times for these, first of all, the statistics when it comes to LGBTQ plus youth who are homeless or are kicked out of their homes or don't feel safe at home, and sometimes school is one of the only places they feel safe with a certain group of friends, and if a teacher overhears another student call them by their name, is it on the teacher? Is it their duty? Is it the law that they're going to have to report them to students?
They have to notify the parents.
I mean, because we've talked about this in Ontario too. Because you used to have to. I'm not sure if the rules changed, but those kind of groups, allegiance groups, where I know even locally here, we've talked about school boards needing to tell parents if their kid joins a gay straight alliance group, right? Like. But parents will argue that they know best when it comes to their kids, though.
No, and 100%. But some of this stuff is so trivial and so minor that, like, a kid saying that they would like to go by a different name, we have to notify the parents. That's crazy. One of my cousins, he never goes by his first name. He goes by his middle name. There's like a whole thing behind it. Anytime he would have a new teacher who didn't know him or a supply teacher and they would say, is Aaron here? He would be like, here, but I go by my middle name, Danielle. Are they calling his parents to be like, oh, your kid wants to go by Daniel? Like, it's so harmless, something small like that. I can understand, but at the same time, like, kids feel differently outside of the home than they do feel in the home. So I think you should at least have a conversation with that. If they say, I would like to go by she, her pronouns instead of he, him pronouns, talk to them first as the teacher and say, what's it like at home? Do your parents know about this? And if the kid tells you, like, I'm scared to come out to my parents, then you're just a jerk if you choose to call the kid's parents and out the kid. In my opinion.
The Prime Minister was asked about it today. Yeah, I mean, I don't have kids either, so I don't know. The Prime Minister was asked about it today. He said, quote, if Premier Smith wants to fight someone, stand with us and fight for Canadians on lower grocery prices, on affordable fuel, on more housing, or fighting climate change. Fight with us to defend the vulnerable Canadians. Don't fight against vulnerable LGBT youth. As a federal government, we will always be there to protect the most vulnerable, particularly vulnerable LGBT youth who need to go again, he goes on there, need to cross country are there for them. It's the people online, and I know I should never read the comments, but it's the people online who, if you comment that you don't agree with this, you're automatically a groomer.
Oh.
Right? Like,
sure.
These blue check warriors are out in full force praising this move.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how many of them are actually in Alberta, but one of those things about social media.
This isn't what politics are about.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff is already happening. The decision's already been made. These people exist. So let's focus on, like, what politics should be about, which is, like he was saying, making life more affordable for Canadians, providing better access to healthcare and housing, and, like, the actual things that matter, and not, like, who an individual person is and targeting them for that would just be my thought there.
All right, well, let's move on to something you're passionate. It's another passion of yours, that being F1. And I thought, the Andretti news would be the biggest F1 news we'd get
of
this
the week, right?
Being denied a team, right? A legend like that. And then the very next day, this young man over here who spells his name incorrectly, Lewis. What a ridiculous way to spell Lewis. Lewis Hamilton says he will switch from Mercedes to Ferrari next year on a multi-year contract, a move he called one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. So then why did he make it, Laura?
Well, some news came out today. Bubba and I were just talking about it, that apparently he had approached Mercedes about being, outside of a driver for the team, also an ambassador. So it would be a role where he could, the team would help him promote his passions outside of the sport. So they would partner with his, like, Mission 44. And, anyone who knows Lewis Hamilton, he's very passionate about social justice and causes that are important to him. And then the ambassadorship would also extend once he had retired. And so he would stay,
like a lifetime contract.
He would stay with Mercedes and help, continue to make changes, not only with the sport, but also outside of the sport. Because, again, if you don't know Formula One, Lewis Hamilton, a lot of the stuff going on in Formula One right now is because of him. He's helped teams change the uniforms, made things safer. Like, he very much cares about his job. And so that was the thought, was that I would love to stay with Mercedes and keep doing stuff with you guys, according to these reports. And somebody up high said, yeah, no, we don't want you to do that, or we don't want that for us. And so then people I'm sure, are constantly trying to poach Lewis, especially knowing that he only had one more year on his contract with, or 2 more years on his contract with Mercedes. And so I guess Ferrari approached him, and the reports say that they were on board with having him be an ambassador and supporting his stuff outside.
Yeah. So Toto Wolff, he's the Mercedes team principal and CEO. He commented, in terms of a team driver pairing, our relationship with Lewis has become the most successful the sport has seen. And that's something we can look back on with pride. Lewis will always be an important part of Mercedes motorsports history. However, we knew our partnership would come to a natural end at some point, and that day has now come. We accept Lewis's decision to seek a fresh challenge, and our opportunities for the future are exciting to contemplate. But for now, we still have 1 season to go, and we are focused on going into racing to deliver a strong 2024. And that's what I find interesting about F1, is that when I'm a free agent, it's at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Here I am telegraphing my move. Mercedes isn't going to make any investment into their car.
No, they
have
will,
to, right? They still have to be competitive.
Well, yeah, regardless of if you're losing a driver, you still want to win, even if it's with the driver that you're losing. Plus, they have a vested interest right now in his teammate, George Russell. So Lewis might shift to a number 2 position more than a number 1 position in this next year, but...
Just this next year, because that is the interesting question in 2025.
Who will be the number 1 at Ferrari?
I mean, because we're talking like shake and bake. Listen, my car racing experience is Talladega Nights, and there's shake and bake, right? It's a team sport,
but also not a team.
So he wants that 8th title. He wants that one that's going to put him over the top. How does this play out within Ferrari? Do you see in 2025 and then beyond? I mean, Mercedes is still probably. Well, you mean I get to race in Lewis Hamilton's car? Toto Wolff says he's excited, and why should he be? A lot of people are going to be wanting that spot.
100%. And there's new engines coming in. There's new regulations coming in. There's new teams coming in. Like Audi's going to come in 2026, which is where they'll think Carlos Sainz will end up. There's a lot of new stuff happening, and I don't know. I thought it was really funny. Somebody online said, for people who don't know Formula One, Lewis leaving Mercedes is like when Zayn left One Direction. And I thought that was really funny because no one was expecting this. I genuinely think Formula One watchers, lovers, and analysts were expecting him to retire with Mercedes and then stay on board with Mercedes in a behind the scenes role. So I don't know, the fact that they turned that down when he's a big part of the reason why the sport is it obviously blew up with the Netflix documentary. But before that, if you asked anyone, Formula One, Lewis Hamilton is the first thing that would come out of their mouths. So I don't know how you squander working with someone or having someone in your corner who is so global and just genuinely cares about what they're doing. It's weird.
Do you think Max Verstappen's watching all this, being who cares? I'm going to win every race anyway?
Yeah, Max doesn't give a hoot about anyone else except for himself.
Well, that's what he does, but he's the champ. He's number 1. I wanted to get to this before we go. I don't think anyone expected a few simple words here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words with 2 question marks. Blowing up the internet. At Elmo at 10:46 a.m. on January 29th said, Elmo is just checking in. How is everyone doing? That was retweeted 58,000 times.
205 million views.
205 million views. Suffering. A lot of people using the term trauma dumping on Elmo. So what'd you make of this?
I thought it was hilarious.
Joanna wrote the reel. I was talking to Joanna. She had no idea about this until she showed up on whatever day that was, Wednesday afternoon, started writing the story. That poor Elmo.
It was so funny.
And then they got attacked by Larry David on the Today Show this week. Larry David went after him on the Today Show.
For what?
He went to go. You didn't see that? Oh man, I'll have to show you off the air. But he went to go tackle him. He choked him for a little bit. Yeah, Larry David.
I don't know. The internet loves Elmo, and it's
who doesn't though.
Right?
Did you not? I grew up with Elmo's World. I had to take on me Elmo.
Same.
A huge part of a lot of people's
love
childhood.
Elmo, but he became this I want to say almost cult-like character over the last 5 years on the internet. Like, I don't know if you remember a couple years ago where everybody was just sharing, like, there was that Elmo hates Rocco thing that was going around.
Yeah.
And they were sharing all these videos of Elmo hating on this pet rock. And then what else? I don't know. I was just seeing all these videos. Like, he went on Jimmy Fallon and that went viral. Like, people have just been obsessed with Elmo. So I thought it was cute. I thought it was hilarious, all the replies. Like, don't get any ideas, Elon, but I often say I can't believe this app is free.
Yeah.
Because it's just peak comedy. But then it ended on a nice note where it just opened with this wider, let's check in on our friends.
He
mental health
tweeted
is
after
important.
the fact, said, wow, Elmo is glad he asked. Elmo learned that it is important to ask a friend how they are doing.
Yeah.
Elmo will check in again soon, friends. Elmo loves you. That's a nice note. Let's end it on that. A week like this, let's end it on a positive note. Laura Sebben, thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Louie.
All right, my thanks to Laura Sebben for joining me. My thanks to Jason Gaidola as well. Remember, you can follow Trending Now on your various social media platforms. That includes on X, on Instagram, on YouTube as well. They're all at Trending Now CHCH. You can also subscribe to Snapchat. CHCH Trending Now. And speaking of subscribing, make sure you like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast so you never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you here on CHCH Podcast. You can also go to chch.com/podcast or go to our CHCH YouTube page. One more time, thank you to my guests for joining me. Thank you to Mike Corson for directing today's show. And thank you for joining us as well from all of us here at CHCH. I'm Louie Butko, hoping you have a great weekend.